got a little fancy intro for you and everything today. So this is big time here. So we are officially live now, Mr. David. Thank you for being here with me. I much appreciate it. So today I have my good friend here, David DeVries. He's sitting down with me to chat for a little bit. Just a little background on Dave for anybody that doesn't know. Dave's been a realtor now for, it's going to be 25 years in February. That's what I was looking at. Does that sound right?
No, it'll be 40 years.
40. Oh, 25 with Pinnacle.
With Pinnacle.
40 years. Right. Wow. So you've been hammering away at this thing for a long time, right? So Dave and I've actually known each other for going on about 10 years almost, because I met him back in October of 2013 when he was working at Remax Pinnacle Group, which he's still there, local brokerage here in Arlington. And he also has a new gig where he is the new host of the Emmy-nominated American Dream show that is on multiple networks all over cable TV, and it's the Dallas version of this episode, right?
Did your homework?
Yes, and what I like to call, he's a heavy metal aficionado, which is that's why I got my Guns N' Roses shirt on for him today. Yes. As buttoned up as Dave looks, he is a heavy metal connoisseur, and one of my favorite topics we talk about all the time is all the concerts he goes to and interesting people he meets and all that kind of fun stuff. So we're going to get into that a little bit too. Yep. And yesterday was your birthday.
Yes, it was.
So happy belated birthday.
I call it my Paul McCartney birthday. I turned 64. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay. 64. Yeah. And you've been doing this for 40. So you've been a realtor since you were 22 years old.
No, 24.
24. So it's 40 years. 64 is 40.
Yep. I'm lying. 23.
Can't do math.
Yeah.
Well, that is a long time, and we're going to get into that in a second, because I do want to talk about I want to get your thoughts on where the market is right now, because you've seen stuff like this come and go, and it's nice to have somebody who's actually gone through this kind of stuff before, and makes us feel a little bit good about the doom and gloom that seems to be covering us all up right now, right?
True.
But before we get into that, I want to talk about the fun stuff. I want to talk about your new side gig, your new side hustle.
Right.
So tell us about what you're doing, how you got into it, how this kind of landed in your lap. And I think you did your first filming, yesterday?
Last week.
Last week?
Did it.
Okay.
Released the first, I guess, promo
yesterday.
Right.
Right. So tell us all about that. How did that start?
Okay. Well, it's American Dream TV.
Okay.
It's the Dallas version, and everything I'm telling you is what I understand to be. So if I'm off by something,
it's not going to be perfect all the time. Right. It's okay. No. We'll just give you negative scores in other places.
they actually interviewed 12 people in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Okay.
And they did all the research on us. They have a whole team that just looks, what's your production? What do you do? How do you do it? What's your online exposure?
Gotcha. So they were actually looking at your sales.
They're looking at everything.
Interesting. Yes. Okay. Very cool.
Kind of studying you before they even invited you to come in and talk.
Right.
And then of the 12, then they picked 5 to be hosts. And of course, we had to want to be a host of it.
Right. You got to have the desire
to.
Yeah.
It sounds great. Hey, I'm going to do that. But boy, when you do it, it's
a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. But we filmed the first one last Tuesday, and we get to, it's a lifestyle show. That's why I can say it. Yeah, okay. It does feature some homes, but they want us to keep the home part about 20%, about 80% lifestyle. What about this area? If somebody were to watch it, say in Seattle, Washington, if they watch the show, what would make them want to come here?
Right.
And see this. So we had to pick a topic. And we started with the entertainment district of Arlington.
Okay.
Cowboy Stadium, Globe Life Field, Texas Live, Live by Lowe's. And I got my first guest was the former mayor, Jeff Williams.
Yes, I saw in your promo video that Keith did, I saw a couple little clips of that.
Right. And it was fun. He was much more experienced being in front of the camera than I was.
Right.
But it was good. We tried to script it. Now the weather didn't really cooperate. It was the day.
Yeah, it hasn't rained in 6 months, and then you go film a show, and all of a sudden it does.
Right.
Stuff.
So here's this glorious Cowboy Stadium, and it's like in a cloud of mist.
Right.
But it was still fun. It was fun to go see the different areas, to go into what is now called Choctaw Stadium. I always call it the ballpark.
Yeah, I'm the same. We went to the Martin High School Lake Travis game the other day. That was at.
That had to be, and it is neat what they've done.
Oh, it's amazing.
Really,
yeah. But I typed in the ballpark, and it was like, what? My navigation was like, oh, Choctaw.
But I guess it'll always be that. So we were able to film a lot of it on top of there where the videographer could get Six Flags, the new National Medal of Honor that's going in, and then also just come over and look at Globe Life Field, the new one, Cowboy Stadium, and really take it all in.
Right.
And then see the field. They may have professional rugby there. You've got football.
I didn't know they had professional rugby
Professional
there.
rugby.
Interesting.
So I want to take that in.
Yeah, I want to go check out a rugby game. I've never heard of that before.
Me too.
I know they have the football league.
Right.
That's the is it the XFL?
I think it's XFL. I know Bob Stoops is going to be the coach of the team. So I mean, we have someone who knows football.
Yeah.
Which
and it's The Rock that's running it, right?
I believe so.
He's like
Dwayne Johnson,
president or whatever it is.
Right. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to support it and go check it out, give it a chance.
So the show itself, like it's a lifestyle show about certain cities, right?
Right.
And do they do, like, what are the other cities that they feature right now?
San Diego, LA, Chicago. They call it a Midwestern. I think they picked up St. Louis. They're doing us, Houston, and San Antonio are the newest ones being added on. I think all told, it's like 40 cities total.
Wow. And what networks is it on right now?
Right now, bear with me on this.
There's a big list.
It's a big list. It's not just on one certain thing, and there are no commercials. It is a show. You
just run straight through. Okay.
And it's really it's really funny because last night I had friends over for my birthday, and I told one of them he goes, I record that show all the time, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're the one.
I mean, you never know what people watch sometimes, especially when you're doing something like that, that's like you said, a lifestyle geared type show. I mean, all the HGTV and DIY network stuff, I mean, all that stuff is really wildly popular. I mean, I don't particularly watch those things very often, but my wife does, and a lot of her friends do, and a lot of people I know do.
Yep.
And it's just amazing because there are so many different outlets, and different, now you got stuff on YouTube, you have stuff on, network TV and cable TV and all the streaming services and everything else. So there's so many options, but it's still, shows like that, especially it's Emmy nominated. So it's kind of a big deal, right?
They seem to know what they're doing.
Yeah. They seem to have their stuff together a little bit.
It seems like a very well-run organization. We had it all filmed, and then we turned it all over to their editors, who are all in the LA area, I believe.
Yeah.
And they then.
So is it multiple episodes? Is it one episode? How are they doing
I
do
season? An episode every other month.
Okay.
So the one I just shot, I had to shoot it by this Friday.
Right.
And then we turn it all in. It'll be run in October. And they'll let us know about a week and a half before where it'll start being premiering.
Gotcha.
Start going. They'll also push it on social media for us.
Oh, yeah, totally.
In other words, they run the whole show. But then we also I retain the licensing. So I can then use it online anyway.
So you can use it for yourself.
Right.
Oh, well, that's great.
We can do. So I've been learning the language kind of. It's been fun. Getting the B-roll, which they'll run. And we were able to get a lot of that from the Rangers.
Yeah.
So while we're talking, they'll show you clips of this is what's going on. It's interesting.
Well, I'm sure my wife and I think we've talked about this before. My wife and I did a DIY network type show. It was one episode of like renovating a lake house. It was called Lakefront Renovation something or other.
I knew there was something going on.
Yeah, they got a lot of names in there, a lot of title parts, but just that process of doing that is really surprising because it's a reality TV show is what we were doing.
Right.
But to say that it's pure reality is not the case.
This show, they're trying to not be a reality. They want to be real.
Scripted.
They want, I have to do all the writing on it, asking it questions. They have parameters they want us to use.
Sure.
But it's totally up to me.
Oh, really? So you get a lot of say in what you ask and who you talk to? Wow.
It's my gig.
That's great.
And I talked to Jeff Williams ahead of time, said this is where I'd kind of like to go with it. He's very active with the National Medal of Honor, so that was his prize thing.
Right.
But he also was instrumental in that whole area growing.
Yeah.
The Lowe's Hotel, which they're building a new one next, right across the street. It's got a catwalk that goes across from it. Also has convention center. And then the one they have now has 300 rooms. The new one's going to have 900.
Wow.
So it's going to really increase capacity. And
it's still Lowe's or
still
group?
Yeah, it's still the Lowe's group.
Right.
And the convention center will be attached to it, which is the Arlington Convention Center, the new one. It's going to be quite, I got to see their video presentation of it.
Yeah.
We'll see how much of it ends up editor's cut.
So all the stuff that Tom Hicks promised to do that never actually happened until Jerry got over there
appears to be happening.
Right.
Yes.
we were promised a lot of great things, but never quite came to fruition.
So it looks like it's moving ahead. I was very thrilled to get kind of an inside glimpse of it all.
Yeah.
And then the next show I plan on doing will be about Verity. Surprise, surprise.
Yes.
And then after that, we can kind of do what we want. I was thinking I want to showcase UTA. Then also like down on Front Street and all of that. I want to kind of show.
So is it more Arlington or is it more?
I'm just
you're just starting here because that's all the areas.
I want to do Grapevine, Main Street.
Right.
Show here's the Gaylord, here's Great Wolf Lodge, South Lake. There was Fort Worth. The other 4 that I know of are all the other people hosting are all over in Dallas, Highland Park, Frisco. So
you're doing more this west side of DFW than
that's what I want to push.
Yeah,
personally, and it's really whatever I want to use.
Yeah. Well, that's really smart for the producers to pick somebody who's obviously from the area, but then let you have a little bit of freedom in deciding what topics you want to cover, simply because you know the area, you've been around, it's interesting, what's interesting about that particular, feature or whatever of the city.
Right.
And that would be huge, as far as entertainment value is concerned, just because people can actually see someone who lives here and what they experience.
Right. And that is their whole idea.
Yeah.
They want someone who's a local who could say, this is what I love about here. And they want us, this is an open-ended thing. It'll go on as long as the show goes on and I want to do it. They want us to talk to local shop owners of maybe someplace I go to all the time.
Yeah.
A restaurant, a store that I think is unique, maybe a coffee house. That's what they want us to really go on and show here and maybe interview the people who own it or someone who goes there and why they love it.
So do you think they're designed everybody talks about audience. Who's their target audience? Are they actually looking for people thinking about moving and relocating to cities, or is it just people that are fascinated about other parts of the world or country or whatever?
It's kind of an everything. They want us to do the pushing on the housing. In other words, the housing part comes from because welcome to the area.
Sure.
I know this area like no one's business. So their whole thing is to push whole areas. They want the Dallas to be represented. They want Los Angeles to be represented.
Mm-hmm.
And they have some real big hitters. I've seen some of the other videos and they're really good. I've seen some that were maybe less.
Not everything's awesome. Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's kind of the risk of it all for them.
Yeah.
Is it, for me, it's like, don't bomb, make sure you do it right.
Yeah.
Luckily, I was able to get comfortable pretty quick. The first few minutes, I was nervous, stuttered over my words, stumbled,
But that's normal.
But after I got going, just rock and rolled it. And I had a good time with it.
Yeah. Do you, when they picked the different people to do all the other cities, are they primarily using realtors? Is that what they're using?
Yes. Realtors and mortgage officers.
Oh, really?
So
loan officers too?
There is a loan officer part of it too.
That's cool. Just people that know the area, that are from there, that have experience and can really.
And I don't know what their criteria was for
that.
And I don't know in Dallas. I mean, I'm going to be learning a lot as I go too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I know everything about this. I just know what my particular job here is.
Now, when you were, so this time you did the entertainment district down there, the Lowe's, the hotel, the old ballpark, Choctaw now or whatever, the new
one we couldn't do because Lady Gaga was coming that night. And
the Gogs wouldn't have it, huh?
Well, and Def Leppard played the night before. So they were they tore that one down the night after.
It wasn't presentable.
It wasn't and plus they were working. We couldn't go in there with them hammering and doing their gig. Yeah. So it was kind of like, well, darn.
Well, that's a shame because I mean, it's really, that place is really. I
think it's great,
amazing. I don't think it looks great from the outside. Personally, I hate it, but
I think it's really pretty ugly.
Yes,
but inside, it's sensational. It really and truly is.
Yeah, we saw a concert there.
Okay,
we saw Chris Stapleton, and
it was wonderful.
Fantastic. Literally, people had told me going there that that the acoustics of it were a little rough and it wasn't the greatest or whatever, but we had just actually gone to Lollapalooza in Chicago the week before that. This is my wife bought something for my birthday. This was like tickets she bought before COVID. Wow. And so his concert had been postponed for for 2 years basically. Right. And so so we'd gone to Lollapalooza in Chicago, which is an outdoor deal, and I got to see the Foo Fighters, which was bucket list.
Where was that?
It was in downtown Chicago
in Grant Park.
Grant Park.
Oh,
yes.
Wow. How fun.
So we saw Post Malone. We saw Foo Fighters. He was awesome. He was great. Foo Fighters. I saw Limp Bizkit.
I love it. The spreaders still have it. Or did he ever have it?
Well, it's funny. I don't know if he was wearing a wig, but he had like his hair was all gray and he was dressed like a dad. Like he was wearing like khakis with, with like loafers and like a windbreaker.
No.
Yeah, no. Well, and what was funny is Megan Thee Stallion was performing at the same time on another stage.
Okay.
But, because I'm an old guy, I was like, well, I'm going to go see Limp Bizkit.
I probably know these songs.
Yeah. But then I also realized after my buddy who was watching Megan Thee Stallion came back, he's like, you should have gone to over there. Because, I don't know if you've ever been to Lollapalooza, but clothing seems to be optional in a lot of cases. So
I've heard about it, never been to it.
Yeah. But anyway, so we came back, went to Chris Stapleton, and this is after coming back from seeing the Foo Fighters, which is a bucket list concert for me. Dave Grohl was amazing.
The man.
He was amazing. Yes. And I watched Chris Stapleton and I like Chris Stapleton, but he played, his whole new album, which I hadn't listened to any of it.
So you didn't really know it.
Well, but that's the thing is I was sitting there as he's playing these songs and I'm typing in my phone. Okay, I got to get this one. I got to get this one, which is rare. I mean, you go to a concert, you hear the new stuff and you're just kind of like,
it's okay.
It's okay. You got to hear it a few times to really kind of get into you.
Right.
But it was so good that, I couldn't help it. So, it was one of the best concerts I've ever been to. And the sound quality was fine. It didn't bother me one bit. We were sitting in like a kind of a suite that was back far away from the stage. So we weren't really even that close, but he just put on a great show. And I thought the venue was pretty good. So I liked it. Like I said, the outside of the building's ugly.
It is.
But I went to, what's the one in Houston? Minute Maid. It actually looks very, very similar to Minute Maid on the outside. So, but the inside they did right.
I was going to say, if it works, inside is where you watch the games or watch the concert.
Yeah. That really, I think overall it's a great thing for the city simply because, it was funny. My daughter actually asked me, we were going to the Martin game and she said, why do they, if we have this whole ballpark here, why do they need a whole other ballpark? And I'm like, well, I agree with you to some extent because I like this one way better.
Me too.
But, when you're looking at it from a baseball point of view, you can never get pitchers here into Texas because it's 112 degrees in the summertime. Or,
I can tell you somebody that's these tickets for a long time.
Yep.
I couldn't give them away.
No.
People would be like, it's a 2:00 Sunday. No.
Nope. They're passing.
Are you kidding? And I remember going to one game where the tops of my legs got burnt to a crisp.
Yes.
So whereas now, 72 degrees, you take it easy. It's
pretty nice.
It's a pretty good gig.
It's AC in there and it's pretty nice. I haven't been. Have you been with the roof open yet?
Yes, I have.
You have? How was that?
It was great too.
Awesome.
It was felt more like the old park. It had that feeling of, okay, nice.
A little more baseball-esque as opposed to being indoors in a building.
But heck, we're in Texas when it's that hot out. You're right. If I was a pitcher, would you want to pitch when it's 100 degrees or 102 or?
No, because it affects your contracts too. You can't, when you have diminishing stats, you play for a team, you may get a huge contract, but it affects your next deal because your statistics aren't as good and they base it off of that. They don't say, oh, well, you played in a bad ballpark when it was, 1,000 degrees and guys are launching balls out of the field. You don't get that benefit of the doubt. So it cost them money.
It did.
Which is why they wouldn't come.
And the third time around the batting order, they're tattooing you because you're tired.
Yes.
That's all just part of the game.
So the American Dream Show, you're doing that once every 2 months.
Every 2 months.
Right. Do you have a contract? Is there a period of time that you're with them until like?
It's open-ended.
Open-ended. Okay.
It's mutual.
Right.
I can say I'm done or they can say you're done.
Yeah.
If they don't like what they're seeing.
How many, of other episodes have they put out thus far in other cities?
I've looked at a bunch of them. I don't know the actual count on them.
Roughly, just.
I really don't know.
Yeah. But several.
I looked at it. I watched a bunch of them beforehand.
Yeah.
Had the ones I liked,
right?
The ones I didn't like. They have an agent in Austin who did a wonderful one. I watched her video. Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know you could go surfing behind your boat.
Oh yeah. Wake surfing.
Yeah, she did.
Sure.
So first she showed all that, and she's from the Austin area, works the luxury market, and at the end she got out there and surfed on it.
Start pulling, throw that rope in, and then just ride the wave in the back.
Oh no! But she did a great job of presenting Austin.
Yeah,
knowing Austin and liking it, and she did a wonder. And she was, she's attractive. She spoke very well. I don't know how I'll do, but
Hey, listen, you're attractive and you speak really well too, buddy.
Yeah, a little animated with the arms, but hey, we'll work on that in time.
So big TV star now, which I'm think is amazing because you're a perfect fit for this deal. I think it's going to be awesome for you.
I hope it is.
But let's get into the realtor side of things a little bit.
Right.
TV's awesome and it's fun, but let's chat a little bit about how you're doing today. Now, one thing that I wanted to ask you about and see how it's going is I've had your teammate or partner, Conrad Jackson, here with me before. We've chatted on many of occasions about a lot of things, but one of the things is your neighborhood that you're building in Hillsborough.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So this is quite the project, I guess you would call it, right? I mean,
it's an undertaking.
Yes.
Well, it's our first one. So we're learning as we go.
Yes. So how's your experience been with that?
Oh, well, it's exciting. Number one, working with Conrad, he is a pro.
Yep.
So I'm honored to even, the two of us are working together.
It's helpful to have really smart people in your corner.
It is.
He's one of those guys.
And he's one of those guys you can totally trust him. He's just as honest as they come. He's smart as can be.
Yep.
So it makes it easier to, kind of say, okay, this is a big undertaking, but we can do this. I've taken the attitude now that if other people have done it, I can do it. We can do it. This is it's not rocket science. It's, this is developing.
Yeah.
And if we haven't been able to figure that out after all these years, as far as what do people want, what would be a good area, and it seems like we did our homework. He worked endlessly on other projects that didn't, things that didn't work out.
Yeah. A lot of trial and error.
Right. A lot of it. And so when this came out and this was like, we got to jump on this now.
What's been the most eye-opening part of doing this that you weren't quite prepared for and just, kind of hit you a little like, wow, I didn't realize that there was this much involved in this type of deal?
Well, I'm also on the board of directors in Verity.
Okay.
So in that we've done bond issues to build. So I know the expense of putting in roads, sewers, everything. I mean, it's crazy. The last phase of Veridian that we put in, it was $38 million just to put all that stuff in one section of it. Wow. So, I mean, ours is small compared to that.
Right.
But
you've seen it on scale. So
I've seen it on scale to get an idea of what it is. But then what all goes into it, you're taking a piece of land and first you got to talk to the city. We had to have them incorporate some of it. We took 3 pieces of land and put it together. Part of it was in the city of Hillsborough. Part of it was not.
Right.
So we had to first, you have to go talk to the city and try to say, this is what we want to do and get them, finding out what their needs were, what they wanted. And I felt like our conversations went great because Conrad and I and his father, and also my wife is helping too. Our idea,
it's a whole family affair you guys got going on.
We want it to be not just the same old stuff.
Yeah.
We don't want just little tiny brick houses.
Right.
These are going to be, we're aiming at starter homes, elementary school right there.
Yes.
We want there to be.
Which is great because there's none of those out there anymore.
Right. And we want front porches. We want back patios. We want it to be
a neighborhood.
Yeah. And the other thing that we're pushing hard on is we want garages that can fit a Ford F-250 in it. Right. Not 19 by 19.
Right.
We're trying to get 23, 25 feet deep.
Yeah.
Because we're in Texas. Come on.
Yeah. Everybody's got massive trucks.
Right. And I mean, and I've sold people houses where the whole thing was, can we even get that in the garage? And I've had plenty of them where nope. So we're trying to make houses that
you'd want to live in.
Right. That we want to live in, or that I've sold enough to people that I've noticed what they want. And Conrad has a similar experience. Yeah. And it's funny how when we talk, we see the same demands constantly. So that's what we're kind of going for.
Well, it's funny right now, especially because, and I've been doing a little research on this, but not a ton, but when, obviously the market shifted a lot since, earlier this year. And our biggest issue that we had in DFW, especially, was just supply. We didn't have enough homes. And the problem was, more than anything, is you had a lot of institutional buyers that were coming in, these large companies, not mom and pop investors, but like large hedge funds, capital, or private equity companies buying up properties, and which put a stress on the demand and the supply that we had, available. Yes. And now, you see these stats coming out that say we have 11 to 12 months of supply available in the market. Now, this isn't DFW, this is nationwide. Right. But those are deceiving statistics, because I think and again, I haven't done full research on this, but I think it was something like 6 or 7 months of that are homes that aren't even completed yet. Right. Like they're not available for sale because they're not done, because these massive builders have literally cranked everything down and stopped because they're terrified of where things are going. So this extra 8 or 9 months of supply that's sitting on supposedly that we have available may never come available in the next year or two because they're not finishing these homes.
Right. They're just going to stall it out. Yeah. I've a good friend who is president of a company that does insulation for housing. Like Coventry Homes uses their product. And he said, because of the shortages that were happening, that they were all buying excess.
Now they're overflowed.
Buying tons of it and putting it in their own storage units so they didn't have to wait. They wouldn't have their houses sitting.
Yeah.
So he saw like a 30% decline in July.
Yeah.
He said, no, it will go back up as they exhaust their supplies. But home companies got really wiped out after 2008.
Yeah.
And I think now they're gun shy. They think it's going down. They're going, whoa, hold on. We are not going to get stuck with tens of millions of dollars of homes sitting here unbought.
Yeah, there was a massive amount of builders that went out of business after 2008.
Right.
I mean, I think they almost lost half the market almost to some extent. I mean, when you count small builders along with everybody else.
All the huge ones that went under. So so I get they were burned, but there was and still is an issue with the big institutional buyers, the private equity firms.
Yeah,
I don't mind. I understand sellers taking their offers because they were paying.
You got to get the most money you can get, right?
Right.
That's your job.
That's America. That's my job is represent my seller, but still you'd watch and you'd see poor individual consumers who couldn't find a house because the investors were buying them all. It was not and has not been. And I've noticed a lot less of it. Whereas a year ago, if it was basically below 400,000, investors were all over them.
Yeah.
And so I think even with higher interest rates, I still think for first-time home buyers, it's getting a lot better than it used to be.
Well, the prices are getting back to where they're more reasonable. And that's the issue. It wasn't, I made a video about this not too long ago when we were looking at today buying a home versus say 8 months ago, right? Well, 8 months ago, if the house was listed for, let's say 400,000, it was selling for 480 or 470.
I was going to say 20% over.
Yeah.
It was not unusual.
Not at all.
Wasn't.
No. And then, so, and especially when you look at like towards the end, when prices were really, really elevated, right? And then everything kind of comes, I hate to use the word crashing down, but it adjusted, let's say, pretty significantly.
It adjusted very quickly
in the last couple of months. It had a very quick rate, which is unusual.
Right.
So people kind of panicked a little bit.
Sure.
But what you saw was if I was listing my house, let's say you sold your house in our neighborhood in December, right? And you listed it at 400 and you sold it for 480, right? Then I decide I'm going to list my house in March or April of this year,
right?
Maybe even May. And I saw your home sold for 470. You listed it at 4, but it sold for, what am I going to list my home for? 500, 480?
Yeah, that's basically, I would tell you as an agent, what do you want to ask?
Yes.
There almost wasn't a point of ridiculousness. You could ask almost anything.
That's right. And then now, if I did that, now my house is sitting because
you weren't getting a showing.
I was overpriced, way overpriced. And it's not because people are saying, well, the home values are, markets are crashing. I'm like, well, they're adjusting to where they should be. They're getting back to a reasonable level, but we're still going to see anywhere between, 6 to 10% appreciation this year. I mean, a lot of the Freddie Mac and Fannie are coming out saying, we're still going to have a 10% appreciation across the board. And every market's different, of course, and you can't say one for the other,
right.
but
in Dallas, Fort Worth, yes, we're, I think, one of the healthier markets.
Yes. Well, we always have been. We were in the 2008 when everything crashed.
Right.
Then, we really
went
didn't
down. We didn't crash. We just went down.
No.
But I'm closing a house on Friday that we got 35,000 over asking on it.
Oh, wow.
But it was, other people, we're talking 395 as we priced it. Well,
sure.
One down the street had sold for 440.
Right.
And ours, wasn't quite as nice, but we decided let's go lower and see what happens. People fighting over it.
That is a really clever strategy, actually. And,
I think it is.
And I didn't even think about that, where you're, it's something obviously you're going to have to explain to your seller, give them justification for it or whatever.
Right.
But, if you've got homes that are sitting in your neighborhood that you look at and go, these are probably overpriced, and you could price your house just a little bit under maybe what you think it would be worth, you might even pick up an extra 5 to 10% in offers, because you're going to have people go, why is this house so much cheaper than these other ones when it's just as good or sometimes even better condition?
I've done over the last couple of years, I've done it a lot.
Yeah.
Where I've said, let's price them where they should be.
Right.
And they still went up. And it just shows you, this was 400,000. It was a beautiful home.
Uh-huh.
Not perfect, but beautiful.
Yeah.
And we had 3 people who just were wanting it desperately. So
Wow.
they each kind of drove it up. And like I said, we're closing it this Friday. Listed it like August 4th. So it didn't even make a month on the market. So they're still happening.
You hear that, all the realtors out there? You don't have to list your house at the highest price point in order to get a good deal for your sellers.
No, I mean, buyers are sophisticated. Us agents are supposed to be sophisticated. So if we can't tell what a deal is and look at it and say to someone, listen, you better look at this now. And if you like it, you better come in. You know, I can justify the comps here. I'm not going to worry about the appraisal. It's going to appraise just fine. I think that's better than pricing it high and letting it sit there.
Yeah.
Because I mean, very simply, if I'm a buyer, it's easy for me to talk to a buyer and say, listen, you love this house. And how long has it been in the market? 5 days.
Right.
You're going to offer one price. If I tell you 2 months, you're going to offer something totally different. So the whole idea of we can always come down, you're blowing the best time to get the highest price.
Yeah. Well, and with the shift now, because it was such a seller dominated market and now the buyers are getting more control, which again, it's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. You have to have balance. You can't have one side of the equation dominating the other because it makes for no good. I mean, I had my, by the way, another disclosure here. So my wife, Susan, who is a realtor, started her real estate career with Mr. David.
Right.
And I met him and I was like, well, if I'm going to get my wife into this business, he's the guy that she's going to have to learn from because.
By the way, she's wonderful.
Yes, she is wonderful.
Really is. She's great.
But I asked her to send me a list of all of the homes in Mansfield. And I'd picked a price range. I think it was like $300,000 and up.
Right.
That had been sitting on the market for more than 30 days. Okay. Something in that.
That's a good ask. And
so there was, I want to say there was somewhere around 15 to 20, somewhere in that neighborhood. Okay. But what was crazy is when I looked at the listings for each one of them, who listed them,
right,
of that, let's say there was 20 of the 20, 15 of them were either Open Door or some sort of iBuyer, Redfin, somebody like that.
Right.
Okay. 15 of the 20 that were still on the market for over 30 days.
Right.
And the biggest difference was that they had done nothing to the property. So they were listing it at top value. So we're asking for the top price point.
Right.
But the house was in complete disarray. Holes in the wall, nothing painted. It looked like garbage.
I've experienced the same thing.
Right. And so nowadays, because the market's balancing back out, buyers have more of a say. So if you're going to list your house and you want to get top dollar, well, it better look good. Because they don't want to walk in and have to put $15,000 or $20,000 in the property, right?
No, most buyers can't see past what they see.
Right.
I mean, you can sit there and go, listen, for $3,000, you could get all these holes patched up and do this. People still kind of go,
I don't want to do that. Yeah.
I want to move in. I've got work to do. I just want to move in.
Yep.
I'm one who can see past that. I think you can too.
Yeah.
I mean, being in the business. Yeah. There's opportunity in that, but for your general people, I think the iBuyers who we're talking about, if you want to group them into a name, I think they've been overpaying for them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And now, from what I've seen, the numbers, they're hemorrhaging money.
Yes,
hemorrhaging.
Yes.
And there's one in Verity where I do a lot of work, and I sold the house 4 years ago for like $325. Mm-hmm. They had it in the market for $540. Now they're down to like $485.
Of course,
they're still too high.
Yeah,
Well,
then you see those massive drops, and then the buyer goes, "Well, what's wrong with this house?"
I do,
right?
As an agent, I kind of go, someone should be fired over that one.
Right. Well, but I think it's even greater. It's an even greater representation of why real estate is so incredibly local, because you've seen, and there's more of a player now too. I don't know if you've noticed this, but with real estate brokerages, there are these big companies that are coming in, and I won't say any names, but that are coming in and basically buying the brokerage essentially, right? And putting technology in place as a platform to say, hey, here's we're going to offer all this to all your agents and have this available to you. And I think the jury's out if this is a good or a bad thing. I don't know.
It just is.
We don't know.
Right.
But at least I'll give those companies credit in that they're understanding that you cannot replace the realtor. You really can't. Right. Not in a centralized, you can't have somebody representing, like Redfin, try to list with us, we'll set this up. There was no contact. None of the agents wanted to work with them. They were a pain in the behind because it's such a local business, real estate is, that I don't know that it's possible to replace agents I think I can be replaced, but I don't know that it's possible to replace agents in local markets because of the knowledge base that comes with it. I mean, heck, like we talked about in the beginning, you have TV shows coming after you for the reason that you understand your area and you know the market. And I don't think that that's something that can be replaced by an iBuyer or the computer.
I would agree with all of that. I don't know how many years ago. I'm going to say 20 years ago.
Yeah.
The big thing was that realtors will be gone. Everything will be done on computer. A little bit like buying a car online.
Yeah.
You won't even be needed. You won't even be around. We're more a part of it now. You know, we talked about people trying to sell the houses themselves. With the new computers, they won't need you. And yet, for example, owner business used to be about 12% of all sales. Now it's like 6%.
Yep.
So actually,
it's gone the other direction.
It's gone the other direction.
Yep.
So, I mean, I do agree that we seem to be more important than ever, even though the system has been automated, which has allowed us to be much more flexible. It's much easier now to write a contract, send it over, get it signed. Unlike the old days where you had to meet with them, fill it out by hand, go meet with the agent, shake hands with them, talk to them about it, then call you back. It was a long process. I'm glad we have a much better platforms than that. But as far as needing eyes and advice, as of now, it's still needed. Now, will it be that way 50 years from now? Who knows?
Well, and the agents out there right now that are struggling a little bit because the market has shifted so much, and good or bad, the last, I said 10 years, but let's just say the last 3 or 4 years in particular, you didn't have to do much but have a cell phone and a number and have a business card, and people were going to be calling you because there was such a frenzy. But now a lot of that has dried up, and now you have to be the professional agent, which, to your point, in that, the technology's gotten better. You can write contracts easier. You can have signatures. You can create amendments. You can,
and people can see the houses online. They see the pictures.
That's right.
Where it used to be, you had to put them in your car and go. And I mean, good riddance.
Right. But now it's a place where all of that is available to create the ease of buying a home.
Sure.
However, that means you have to be that much more knowledgeable in your neighborhood, specifically like you do Veridian, right? Veridian is your specialty. You live there, you sell there, you're on the board there.
I have a slogan about that.
Yes. I mean, you need t-shirts and stuff. I mean, that's your gig. But the reason that you have that much success and you had a career before that, but this has been your focus, and made another career out of it, is that your knowledge of that area is so much more, surpassed anybody else that could even think about stepping into that neighborhood and having the information that you do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big neighborhood. There's plenty of room, but Friday I closed my 128th home there.
That's crazy.
Right, and I mean, it does have a momentum going, and I enjoy it. I am on the board of directors. I'm very involved. I've learned how to sail. I mean, as you know, I've been running for over 40 years. I can go out my front door and go for a nice 4.7 mile run around the lake into the woods, and
see 20 people you sold a house to.
Walk my dog, do the same thing.
Right.
But I mean, it is all just part of it's easy to sell something you love.
Yeah.
And I will say from everything we're talking about, Conrad, he's, I may be like the one who taught him what things to do, but he's far better than I am. He's got a neighborhood in Midlothian that he's been in time. I'm sure it'll happen. Well, if he wants it, he will probably sell more than anybody there.
That's one of the pieces of advice that you gave my wife early on that she told me about that I thought was just tremendous, and I still believe it, is that pick an area, pick a neighborhood. We think we have to be all things to all people, and that makes you medium to average at all things to all people, right? If you're really good. Right. So, but if you're an expert at one thing or one area and you have hyper focus on that, you can have a ton of success because nobody will be able to surpass your knowledge in that situation. Right?
And I'll tell you that even in Verity now, I'm listing houses that people bought using other agents.
Yeah.
But they want the guy who sells everything in Veridian.
Right.
And I've been on the other side of that where I've worked hard with someone, found the right house. And all of a sudden, 5 years later, I see, kept in contact. They listed with someone else. I'm like, well, they seem to sell everything in the neighborhood, Dave. Can't blame them.
No,
I really can't. I mean, so yeah. And to me, it's almost like a segue that something I learned in the rock and roll business was the same thing.
Yeah.
With Pantera.
Uh-huh.
Vinny and Daryl's dad told me that very young, he told them, this is a business of specialization.
Yeah.
If you're trying to be all things to all people, you'll be nothing. You'll
Right.
be just another band playing at the local bar.
Yep.
Working somewhere else is a real job. And he said, he's like, he told them specialize in something.
Yeah.
And that's when they decided to go to a heavy, full in sound that exploded.
So, okay. So since you brought it up,
since
you brought it up. All right. So my favorite story is, and I want you to tell it. I've heard it before, but it's been a while, is how you met those guys. Okay. Because, so if anybody doesn't know, Pantera is actually a local band. They're one of the OG local bands, because they were originally here in Arlington.
Right.
And you were selling with, were you with Remax at the time?
No, I was with Century 21,
Century
21 Boswell on Cooper, on South Cooper.
So my favorite part, and I want you to tell the whole story, is about in the lesson to this story is never judge a book by its cover.
Never.
And always be kind to all people, because if you're not, then you miss out on tremendous opportunities.
Yes.
So tell us the story.
Yeah. Back in the day, we had what they called floor duty, which is, you worked the phones. You were an unpaid assistant is what you were. But if anyone called on a sign, which is what they had to, there was no internet to do things. You'd get the client, it was yours, whether it was good, bad, or whatever. And usually you worked with one other person and you rotated people.
Right.
Well, it was not my turn. And then walk in 2 young ladies into the office. And
describe these young ladies.
They looked like they probably worked at adult establishments.
Okay, there we go. Got it. I think that's very PC. I think you're good there.
And I will flat out say that one of them, who's a great friend of mine now, it's her birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday,
Rita.
Happy birthday, Rita.
Yeah. And it was, bottom line was they were dating the drummer from Pantera.
Right.
And he was going to buy her a home.
Right. But you didn't know that at the time.
I didn't know it. I took him, once again, they came in, I said, let's, and they weren't even my clients, supposed to be their guy. And he looked at me and said, you can have them.
Right. He didn't even want them. You're like, there's 2 human beings standing in front of me who
say, I want to buy a house.
I'm not going to say no.
So let's go talk, figured it out. Let's find some homes, go show them the houses.
Yeah.
And we developed a friendship.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that the young lady who was going to buy the house didn't. They broke up, didn't buy it. But Daryl's girlfriend, Rita, called me about a month later and said, you know what? I appreciate you taking us out, and I want to buy a house.
Yeah.
I want to buy it. It's not my boyfriend. It's me.
Dimebag Daryl, by the way.
Yeah, Dimebag Daryl. It was his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And so I found her a house and sold her. And what kind of might have helped a bunch was it came time for closing, and she was like $500 short of money for closing. So I just said, take it out of my commission, pay me when you can.
Help her out. Yep.
She walked in with cash about a month or so later and said, thank you so much. That was just the coolest thing ever. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we just kind of built a friendship.
Yeah.
Once again, she told me about her boyfriend, Pantera. And I was kind of like, okay.
Now at that time, Pantera was, they were a band obviously, but they weren't national.
They were just hitting.
Right.
And 2 years later, I get a phone call from her. I kept in touch. I sent posts. Hey, Rita.
Yeah, your normal, your past clients, you're maintaining, sending your postcards.
You got it.
Happy birthdays.
And she says, hey, my boyfriend just came back in town. He's been on tour for last year and a half. They did Far Beyond Driven, which is, and they've been touring with Kiss and all this stuff. And I'm still on it. Never heard of them,
Right. And you're like, sounds good. Okay.
And
do they know Barry Manilow? Or?
Yeah. Okay. Well, the funny thing on that was that, at that time I was heavily into Yanni. So, and I told Daryl that when I met him.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So
nobody's heavy into Yanni, by the way.
Right. I enjoyed Yanni. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I different era. I faxed over all the houses. This is like at 4:00 in the afternoon. Can you fax these over? Anything that matches criteria? I sent them like 30 homes.
Yeah.
We want land.
And by the way, for all you kids out there, faxing is where you put a piece of paper into something that looks like a printer and it sends it to somebody else and they get a piece of paper as a copy from far away.
Right. So I sent them, let's just say I sent them the houses. And the next morning she calls me, leaves a message saying, can you look at these 5? And this is like at 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm like, she goes, I said, what, we're vampires, when you rock and rollers, you play at night. We drove around, looked at every single house.
Yeah.
I was like, my goodness. This is where he lives. Pick him up at 3:00. That was my introduction. So I go to the door, where's where he lives.
By the way, describe what you're wearing at this time too, by the way. Just because actually today, you got the little pullover with you look kind of hip there, Dave. Looked like superstar, television star. But
I was wearing a white long sleeve shirt with a tie and had my coat in the car and
khakis.
I was wearing the dress uniform.
Yes.
So I go to the door and this guy opens the door and they were living with their mom. So they've been on tour. They're now getting wildly successful. For those who don't know, they had the #1 album in the country, and it was their first metal band to ever, before Metallica, they had a #1 album.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
So Pantera was the first classified as metal band to have the
#1 album.
And that was the Cowboys from Hell.
That was Far Beyond Driven.
Okay, Far Beyond Driven.
After Vogler came out, it was so big. When Far Beyond Driven came out, it went crazy.
Wow. Okay.
And when I met them, they just come off that tour. They'd been in Europe, Russia, Japan, Australia, South America, touring, with Kiss and doing some big ones.
Wow.
All kinds. So of course, and anyway, I go to the door, I knock on it, and this big guy answers. His name was Big Val. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Who are you?" And I was like, "I'm here to see Daryl."
Daryl, you're right. You asked Daryl. They're like,
well, he looks at me and he goes, "Oh, you're the realtor guy." I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'll watch my expletives." But basically he read me the ride out.
It's fine. You can say whatever.
I better take care of him,
right?
Or else. And I was just like, holy crap, what am I getting into here? So I go inside, I sit down and wait, and a little while longer in walks this guy who's got his hair pulled back, and he truthfully, he looked tired.
Yeah.
And he was.
Sure,
he was exhausted.
Yeah.
So I didn't know who he was, anything else. He got in the car, we drove around, looked at those houses, and we just became friends.
Yeah.
He asked me if you could do anything you wanted, what would you do? I was like, I'm doing it. I enjoy this.
Yeah.
And in my world, I said, I enjoy finding it and getting it right.
Yeah.
And anyone who knew him, his comeback to me was, in other words, you get a nut off on doing this, don't you? And I was like, okay, I get a nut off doing
this.
That's
right.
Okay?
Yes.
But that was the way he talked. And we just became friends. That's what he asked me. He said, hey, what do you listen to? I was like, Johnny. He busted out laughing. He's like, you got to be kidding. And he said, how about this? I said, well, I grew up, I was a 12, 13-year-old. I was into Black Sabbath, Alice Cooper, all this kind of stuff. And he was like, okay, that's good. At least we got some hope for you here.
Got a little bit of common ground.
And then we were looking in North Arlington. He wanted an acre of land. He wanted a place so he could put a gate up so he could have some privacy.
Uh-huh.
And once again, I still didn't know anything about him. And he said, we were near Guitar Center. And he said, do you mind if we go in there, pick up a few things? But then we've been talking, having a great time. Sure, we go in there.
It's funny, before you tell about what happened when you go in there, but the idea that he gets to sit in the car with you, who really doesn't know anything about him, right? He's used to being around fans and crazy people that are just in his grill 24/7 that always have something that they want from him, right? Most of the time. And then he meets Simple Dave, who's just hanging out, showing some houses in his khakis, just like, what kind of music do you play? The guitar? Oh, that's nice.
I didn't know,
completely oblivious.
I knew nothing about it. I knew he was in the band.
Right.
So
that had to be refreshing for him though, right?
Oh, I could tell.
It had to be.
He was chuckling. He was having a good time.
Yes.
I said, in other words, you're kind of important to the band. He kind of
chuckled.
A big deal. Went, yeah, I'm pretty good.
So you get to Guitar Center.
Right. And it took us like an hour and a half to get out of there.
Yeah.
Because everyone there was just like, oh my God.
Well, you just walked in. They saw you.
No. Me. So we got back in the car and I was like, wow, you're pretty popular, aren't you? And he goes, yeah, but now you understand why I need what I need.
Yeah.
And so we actually found a house in Mansfield.
Oh, wow.
Got it under contract, and he said, I got my brother to see it, then Paul, and I want my mom to see it. And his brother came out and we wrote the contract, signed it, I'm thinking, oh, great, we got the house. His brother looks at it. I could see him kind of discussing it like, no. He gets in the car and his words were, I'm skitzing. And I was like, what do you mean exactly? I don't want the house. He can keep his money. I don't care. I don't want the house.
Huh.
And that's when Mansfield was still a dry city.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow. That was
so. And I remember it being oh, it's gonna be the biggest house I've ever sold. And I'm like, gosh. So I remember going home and my wife being like, go find him another place. So the next day I went and found the house that he ended up buying in Delaware Gardens.
Yeah.
I called him because he didn't get up till 3 or 4 in the afternoon. I called him. I went and looked at it and I called him and said, Daryl, I found your house. Now, it's here. I've got it. And so we go look at it. And he's like, you're right. This is awesome. Already had the gate, people had a huge RV, a fifth wheel with woodworking shop and he wanted to make a studio. He said, when something hits me, I want to be able to go play.
Right.
And if it's 2:00 in the morning, so what? It's got to be soundproof so my neighbors don't hear it.
Yeah.
And that's what he made it. He called it Chase and Jason Studios. And that night, so then I go home and I'm like, I was getting ready to go out of town the next morning.
Yeah.
Go meet my wife's family who I hadn't met before because she wasn't my wife yet. And so I call him and say, listen, I got the contract ready. Let me come and get you signed. Hey, I'm at the bowling alley. Come on over. Long story short, I walked in the house at 7 a.m. Because Daryl had to initiate me.
You can't leave, right? When you get there, he's like, no, Dave, you got to hang out. You got to meet everybody.
And we actually went back to his mom's house. He had a recording studio in the garage, and we made a song.
Oh, wow.
So I actually have a song that I would never, the
Did
whole world
you
ever hear it.
Play or sing? Or?
I sang while he played.
And you have that?
I have it.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Right. And it's awful singing, just terrible. Cause I'm thinking I'd sing. And he's like, no, just sing. And
I bet you that thing would be worth a lot of money.
Probably
I know you'd never sell it, but I'm just saying
it's pathetic.
But just given, what's happened and all that kind of stuff and at what stage of their career that was in. And
it was fun. In fact, he would give me a hard time, and you probably know it, but he also he liked to give everyone a nickname. Everyone had a nickname in Daryl's world. His brother was called Riggs. The reason he called him Riggs is because he could, as he called it, he could jerry rig anything.
Right.
So what do you mean? Well, if we're on tour, we got something's not working. Give me some gum, give me some tape. We'll make this work. So he just started at this nickname. Daryl called him Riggs.
Yeah.
No one else did, but Daryl did. And everyone had a name. He had Bobby Tongs. That's not even close to his name, but anyway, mine became classic.
We don't need to know why Bobby Tongues was called Bobby Tongues.
Yeah, I never asked, okay? Because his name is Daryl too. He's a great guy, and his wife, super people. I just became good friends, and his nickname for me was Classic Plastic Ken.
Plastic Ken.
Yeah. So
Classic Plastic Ken.
Classic, because I had my hair was getting gray.
CPK.
So he thought, and I actually gave him for Christmas, I actually went and got a Ken doll, painted the hair white and modified it and gave it to him. It's still on the wall of his house today.
That's awesome.
Because
that's awesome.
It had so much fun with it.
Yeah.
I also did a guitar for him where I painted it fluorescent pink. And super glued dimes all over it and gave it to him for his birthday. And he actually sold it to the Hard Rock Casino. It's in the Hard Rock Casino in Florida. I called it the spare dime. He never played it, but it's there.
Wow. So the guitar that you gave Daryl that you made like with glue and
it was my assistant at the time, Deidre, her boyfriend, played guitar and was honored that I was going to. So I took it apart, spray painted it, put this and gave it to him for birthday present. I called it the spare dime. I made a little rhyme in there for him. And you're out on tour and things break down, use your spare dime. When things aren't going right, you can't wear it, use your spare dime. I kind of made a little thing with that. And he loved stuff like that.
Yeah.
But long story short on that, he bought that house. We became very, very good friends. When he was, I wasn't like a business friend, I was a friend.
Yeah.
You
were his buddy.
But whenever they came to town, whatever was going on, I mean, I've met some.
I mean, you've been to pretty much every metal concert on planet. So just real quick rundown, all and not just there, but like backstage, meeting the guys, like hanging with everybody,
partying with at Daryl's house. I mean, and in fact, I will tell you how much of a metal. My son at the time was 14, who's now 41. Yeah. He's got a 13-year-old daughter. Her first concert was last year. It was Tool.
I'm a huge Tool fan.
And then her first concert with me and with her father, her first metal concert was Slipknot.
With the masks and the whole
gig, with Wage War and truthfully, and she had a ball. I mean, she's just like her father, she's a straight A student. My son, was very smart, very studious. Yeah. And here he was going out and hanging out at Dimebag Daryl's house with his dad. And all his friends were like, "You're what?" We would take him to concerts and the friends would be like, "When you said you knew him, I didn't know you like you're like best friends or buddies." It's kind of like, "Yeah, we were."
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But when unfortunately he was tragically killed, I got to meet Eddie Van Halen and Scott Ian. And, I could go on. I mean, true, I could name drop like crazy. I won't. But But it was just a normal day. Dave Grohl.
Again,
I did drop that one. Okay.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. It's such a, it's my favorite story because it's a story that represents truly who you are. And I don't mean this in like trying to butter you up, Dave, but I mean, I truly mean this, in that you're one of the most genuine people that I've ever met.
Oh, wow.
Whatever comes out of your mouth is what you feel. You don't put out airs. You don't cover stuff up. I mean, you just are who you are.
Wow.
And the fact that you sat in an office and somebody was like, I don't want to deal with these ladies.
Oh.
And you said, well, I'll take them out because I mean, they're just people, right? They're just human beings. So I'm going to show them a house. And because you did that, because that's one small act of kindness, or not even act of kindness, just not being a jerk, really.
Why wouldn't I treat him nicely?
Right.
I mean,
but that one thing set your whole life on a whole other course. I mean, take the real estate stuff out of it. Obviously that was great. And you met a lot of contacts and sold some homes.
I have lifetime friends
for sure. But you have so many people that you've created relationships with in a world that you never would have ever been exposed to, most likely.
Right. And I knew nothing about, to be real blunt. And it's like everything. Once you learn that they're doing a job like everyone.
Yeah.
And like Daryl told me, and that's the other thing too. I remember after I got to know him, I asked Rita, his girlfriend, and Rita and I are still very good friends.
Yeah.
We still talk a lot. We still hang out. I still do things. I said, do you call him Dime or do you call him Daryl? And she said, family calls him Daryl.
Yeah.
Never called him Dime.
Yeah.
I always called him Daryl.
Yeah.
Always did. Always did. Yeah. And from that, I ended up helping Vinny with his house, ended up selling Rex a house. Mm-hmm. I became kind of like the band, and not all of them. I mean, and then from there, I have worked with some other people, band people with it, or just friends. So it's really, and these are people I just love, even though we have come from different places and different.
Yeah.
These are still family. I call them my family.
Yeah.
They are like my family. I would do anything for any one of them. I mean, they're just wonderful. All the guitar techs and drum techs and all the different, because a lot goes into those shows. It's like everything. These people take the credit, but they have a whole mountain of people working their rear ends off for them.
Yeah.
Now they're the creative genius. And the big thing I learned that I really found most fascinating was that, because he said their first album became big. Cowboys from Hell became this gigantic album. And then the second album went bigger. Third, after that kind of started, going down a little bit. And he said, well, what happens is that when you're young and new, you're creating riffs, you're broke, you're just working, you're playing all the time, you write stuff. But then when you start touring is a grind.
Right. You're just doing the same thing every day.
Right. And you're with the same people playing the same songs.
You're not experiencing new things.
Right. So that's why he said, if you'll notice, all these bands have a couple good albums and they kind of fade off.
Yeah.
It's because your life becomes
the band,
and you're on the road being that and not getting new experiences.
Right.
And the other part, he says, it's one thing when you're broke and you're trying, it's easy to write about, especially for metal, like, life has been rough. I mean, now you got your own big house, you got everything made, you're driving nice cars. How do you keep the rage?
Yeah.
How do you keep the anger when it's kind of necessary? He said it gets really hard.
Well, they say that about like stand-up comedians. I love stand-up comedy, and you have a lot of these comedians that'll come along and their first 2 or 3 specials will be amazing.
Right.
And then they start kind of falling off because they're traveling, they're touring. They're, instead of talking about, what I experienced as a kid or this or that or whatever, they're talking about hotels, in the airport rough, and don't we hate hotels? Cause that's all they've experienced.
And you and I are going.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, I can't really relate to that, so you have to go experience life. You have to do different things,
right.
Yeah. But I mean, to tie it back to real estate, that's part of what's made you so successful over the years. Is obviously you're great at what you do, but you have such a wide breadth of experiences and people that you relate to, and that you run, you're part of the metal stuff. You like the sailboats. I mean, you have all of these things that you enjoy doing. And what I always, anytime I meet new agents and they're, they'll say, well, how do I get my business going to this? One of the things I always tell them is find something that you're really passionate about, whatever it is. It could be a million different things, but find that thing and put yourself all the way into it, because all the people that are doing that thing with you, whatever it is, will see you for who you are. And when they think about buying or selling their house, you'll be the first person they call, because they know your character. They know who you are as a person.
Right.
And so when you have taken your your passion for, which you didn't even know you were going to have, but the metal and going to these concerts and meeting all these people and all that. And then your passion for running and your passion for sailing and all those things. And you put that all together.
Right.
Well, you meet so many people all throughout different walks of life that your business just happens. You don't have to do a ton of stuff because you do all that things.
Yeah. The work part of it is learning. Sales is not about tricking people into anything. It's not talking them into anything.
Right.
It's helping them do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Finding the right house and then giving them permission to buy it, figuring out a way that they can buy it.
Yeah.
That's our job. It's not tricky. It's not, you have to learn how to say things to people in the correct way.
Sure.
Because many times, for people, I can tell they love the house, and they want it. They just need someone to say,
it's okay.
This is okay.
Yeah.
I'm here to take care of this stuff. I'll let you know if there's problems. It's ultimately your decision.
Yeah.
I'm not here to tell you what to do and how to do it. I'm going to help you get what you want.
Right.
If you want this house, if this is truly what you want. And as long as I still love doing that, and I do, I'll keep doing it. But you still have to learn what to say. You have to learn how to say it. You learn about what works, what can't work. What are traps that could, fall in. Even now, I had one recently, last week, it fell apart at the last minute. It still happens. The gentleman had bought this house. Wow. They got their divorce was finalized from that country, but it didn't mention anything about property. So he goes to sell it now 5 years later. And I was like, we got to find her. You got to, I don't know how to get a hold of her. I have no clue. It was kind of like, he's like, I can't believe here's a divorce decree. I said, it mentions nothing about property.
Right.
Nothing.
Right. And
you got married in Texas, what's yours is hers. And no title company is going to do this.
Yeah.
Because she can come back, or heirs, if she ever has children, can say that was half mine. Mm-hmm. And it all fell apart in the last couple of days. People were approved, ready to go. And I didn't know it either. I thought, because here's the weird part. It said, when he bought it, it said a single man. It was like, somebody has my explaining to do here.
That's a single.
No, whoop. So I don't know how the gentleman, he's a super nice guy. He really didn't know. In my opinion, he didn't know that would ever be an issue, nor did I. It wasn't until a title company called me and said, I said, well, certainly we can get a hold of the ex-wife and get it signed, right? Nope.
There's never any lack of surprises. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
The job always calls that.
You think you've seen it all. You haven't. That's kind of the new adventure of this business.
So speaking of all those years, so we've been doing this for about an hour now. I know it's
really?
crazy. Yep. Goes fast.
Right. Okay.
But so I want to get close here to wrapping it up, but I do want you to talk about, because you've been through this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Our market's changing. It's changing rapidly, which we're used to things changing, but just not so daggum fast. Right. I mean, this has happened in the last 3 months. So speak a little bit about, what you went through during the time selling with 18% interest rates, and then also what happened in 2008 and how it felt coming right out of that, and help other agents and people in the business kind of understand this isn't the end of the world. It's not Armageddon. It's an adjustment, but life goes on. You
can do this.
Yes.
Real simple. I mean, I've been through 2 other pretty big downturns. We had the SNL crisis.
Yep.
And that was the first time all of a sudden.
Not Saturday Night Live, by the way, young folks. Savings and loans. Savings and loans.
Savings and loans. So then when it happened in 2008, I already knew. I'd already watched it happen once.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is, if a seller needs to sell and there has been no appreciation, in fact, depreciation, and they must sell. And 2 options. You can rent it out, move on, took a job transfer, whatever, or you need to price it now, because if it's continuing to go down, the longer you wait, the less you're going to get.
Right.
So I'm understanding of, it hasn't gone the way you wanted. This wasn't what everyone told you would happen. They told you you'd make mega bucks and buy a house, and it's not happened.
Right.
If you must sell your house, let's look at the comps here now, and let's make sure that we're the first ones out, not the last ones out.
Right.
And I found that when you put it that way, people get it.
Right.
They understand that, listen, if you wait 2 more months, it's actually going to get down, probably going to be a little bit less.
Yeah.
So, and once again, you have to put yourself in the mindset of the buyer. The buyer is going to look at the pricing and features, benefits, and say, what's my best deal? You don't want to be one of the cheaper houses, be the cheapest one. if you're talking like $1,000 or $2,
Yeah.
in other words, get out now so that 3 months from now, you're not dropping your price even more and taking even less.
Yeah.
It's not hard to convince people that when they see that happening, when they see that every month it's kind of going down, which is, and like now in that time it went down.
Right.
This is just, this
is ease. Yeah.
Right. And it's not all price ranges. It's not all areas. So it's best just to say, come back to, do you have to move? If the answer is yes, then the longer you wait, you're probably going to get less money.
Yeah.
So I don't want to give away money we don't have to, but at the same time, if we can get out now, let's figure out, let's be the first one out.
Right.
Let's make other people chase us. Let's not be the one chasing, let everyone else keep reducing their prices and they sell before you do. And then the prices get worse. And then because that's what it's like a cycle that once it starts,
it's hard to get out of.
Yeah.
And if you've listed and lowered the price and relisted and taken off the market,
you basically have if you're talking a supermarket, you have the item that's sitting on the shelf, on the bottom shelf, all dusty.
Right.
And no one's even seeing it anymore.
Right.
They've driven by it a million times. They don't even see the sign. They look at the data and they go, oh, it's been listed 3 times, been on the market for a year. Wow.
Yeah.
Wonder what they'll take now.
That's why that first initial, like, we're going to, like you said, you do need to sell. Yes, I need to sell. Okay, well, here's what we got to do.
Right.
And put them in that spot. So if you had a seller today that was like, hey, Dave, I got to sell my house. I really need to get out from under this, or for whatever reason, let's say get out from under it, but they just are moving to jobs or whatever. Right. What would you tell them right out of the gate? Say, okay, here, we got to do these things.
Yeah. Let's look at the houses that have sold. And I don't mean up to May. I mean, June, even June, because some of those houses went over contract in May, and that's when people were still overpaying.
Yeah.
But, houses that have sold in this last month, because they sold probably in July and they're closing now, it's pretty obvious what's going on.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that it's eased. You're not going to put, I know your friend put it on 5 months ago and they got 20 offers and 75 showings. That's over and done.
Yes. For now, at least.
If you need to sell, so you got 2 options: don't move or rent it out, or sell it and get the best you can. And let's look at the trend and let's try to catch it before it goes down worse. Unless people have got the money, but even people who have the money and could take the loss don't want to take the loss. They don't want to throw good money after bad. So I just try to explain that, hey, if in fact you absolutely have to sell your home, this is the best course of action for you to get the most money.
Right.
You don't want me listing it, and you listing it higher, and then me having to call you up every 2 weeks and say, well, another one just sold and it went even cheaper, because that's what happens. And you talk about discouraging. That's discouraging.
Yeah.
I mean, and as an agent, you got to kind of really work on keep up. And sometimes you got to keep telling people things and keep telling people things and keep telling. And sometimes they all of a sudden wake up one day and go, oh, wow, you're right. I should have done this. So you have to tell them, but also be patient. It's kind of you have to kind of walk lightly, and just because they want to brag. People want to brag, to go to their friends and say, I did great.
I know all about that when it comes to interest rates, because everybody wants to say, well, I got a 4 in front of mine, or 3.
Right. It's the same thing. And so my advice to people is, if you have to move, or here's the other thing too. If you're making what I call, if you're staying in town, there's never the best time. If you're getting top dollar for that, means you're paying top dollar on the other side.
Yep.
If you're taking a bath on this side, it means you're giving a bath to someone over here.
Yep.
If it's time for you to move, your family needs to get bigger, get smaller, something's changed. There is never the perfect time.
No.
So if you have to do it, do it.
Yeah.
You can always refinance later if you think things are going to go down. It's the old thing about, you marry the woman, I won't finish that whole phrase, but you want the house you want.
Yeah.
If you have a family, this is where you see yourself living.
Yeah.
Let's not sit here with your life on hold. Let's go.
Yeah. Trying to time it out.
Right. Because you know what? I find those who try to time it never do.
Yeah.
People who just do what's in their best interest at the time usually do pretty well.
Well, it's the same thing with stock market, right? They talk about all that, the dollar cost average. Just buy what you know is good and leave it alone.
We do it. I mean, this year we haven't lost money because I've dumped a bunch more into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it was lost, but everyone always compares what the house was at its peak.
Yes.
Well, if you weren't selling, it didn't matter. It's the same thing with the stock market. Well, it was up to 36. Were you going to sell? No, but it was up to that. Well, it's nothing until you sell it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so what about buyers? So if you had a buyer today that was shopping for a house, they're in a much better position.
Yes.
So what are you asking for, and what are you looking for if you're a buyer?
Well, the big thing is the costs aren't shifted over to the buyer like they were. You don't have the title policy being paid for by the buyer like it was and paying way over. To me, it's still about, is this the right house for you?
By the way, there's a little note from Conrad there.
It's not happening.
Sorry. Conrad had something to say there, so I had to pop that on there.
Put your own,
Get creative. You know what's going on.
You know what I was going to say.
So sorry, I saw that. I was like, I had to throw that on there real quick.
Thanks,
Conrad. So if you're a buyer, what are you telling them?
Right now, if it's the right house, I've always been, I try to be real picky, even in the good market, when basically people were buying things they shouldn't be buying as far as bad houses. A good house will sell no matter what. A good floor plan, a good house by schools. In other words, you still want the fundamentals to be right. Is this the right house for you and your family at this time in your lives? And if it's a really spectacular house or good house, it'll sell no matter what when you go to sell it.
Yeah.
But a bad location's a bad location.
Right.
If it's bad now, it'll be bad then.
Right.
So you still, I would rather see someone pay a few dollars more and get the right house than get the deal in the wrong area that isn't right. Maybe the floor plan isn't quite right. The neighborhood isn't quite right.
Yeah.
Buy the one that fits you, because if it fits you, it's going to fit somebody else too.
Yeah. Well, and buyers are in a stronger position now too, because now if a house has been listed for a little bit, you can do wonderful things like ask for closing costs. You can have the seller pay the title policy. You can, set your own close dates. And I mean, there's all kinds of things that people weren't able to do before because they didn't have. Oh, and by the way, if you have an FHA or a VA loan, or
you have a chance now.
You actually have a chance to get a house versus not even being considered whatsoever.
Right. I'm closing one in Verity, 820,000. It's a veteran. It's a VA.
Yep.
Which probably a year ago
wouldn't have gotten sniffed.
Wouldn't have gotten.
No.
He had been beat out by someone putting 50% down or all cash. So I mean, there is great opportunity for buyers to buy the right house. Yeah. And face it, interest rates, maybe they're not what they were, but they're still not terrible. They're still, if it's the right house, it beats renting.
Yes.
Or it beats being stuck, having your life on hold in the wrong house. Yeah. If your family's got bigger, smaller, needs have changed, be happy. Life's too short to spend it on hold.
Well, and rates ebb and flow. So whatever the rate is today, it's not going to be that rate in a year. And now it could be up, it could be down. Nobody can predict that kind of stuff and where it's going. But for the most part, you can always get out of your interest rate. Once you pay for the house and get the house, there's not much you can do at that point. So you got to pick the right place.
I agree. Totally.
But I'm just, I think right now there's a lot of opportunity. I think people are a little scared. Consumers, I should say, are a little frightened about where the market's going to go, where the economy is going to go as a whole. There's a lot up in the air on that. But like you said a second ago, renting is not the better option because it only is getting, I think I saw today that rents are up like 10%, just this year so far across the board.
Right.
Because, what we experienced in the market previously where house prices have gone up so much that we've now priced out to some extent the first time home buyer or whatever category you want to put that human in.
Right.
And so now that person is renting. Well, all these large equity firms and all these institutional buyers that went and bought up all these homes, well, now they're renting them out. And now you're paying these guys. And if you think they're good landlords, you're out of your mind because they're terrible.
No.
And they're going to continue raising your rent. They're going to continue to not fix your properties and do all the things that are necessary. And you're going to be stuck in this perpetual thing. Now, the downside is it's hard to save money these days. Incomes aren't quite what they used to be compared to what the prices of things are. But there's a lot of great programs to help with that stuff too. But one way or another, if the path to the American dream, back to where we started, is still home ownership. And that's what it's been. And that's what it's continued to be because that's the one place you can grow your wealth.
It's the first step on the ladder of wealth.
Yep.
I mean, it's hard to do. It's hard to build up wealth when you're renting.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's usually the first step for most people. And my feeling is you should still try. It's much better to have your own place that you can do what you want to it because it's yours.
Yep.
So yes, I still think it's always better to buy than to rent. That's just my own personal.
And of course, we're lender and realtor. So
we have our bias. We do have a horse in this race, don't we?
Well, man, I really appreciate you coming in. Sure. We're hour and 15 almost, so this is good. It goes by fast.
I really am shocked at how fast it's gone.
So we can sit here for hours and chat, but I really do appreciate you popping in and talking to us for a little bit. I wish you the best. Once the American Dream show comes out, we get that first episode. We need to have like a watching party or something.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay, good. We'll put me on the invite list. I want to come check it out.
See, I want to see it ahead of time and see if I want to have a watch party or I need to hide party.
Oh man, I'm sure it's going to be awesome. I have no doubt. Everything you touch turns to gold, my friend. So
Thank you. That's very flattering. I appreciate
You got it. It's just the truth. Well, very much appreciate you coming in, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
I'd love to, Mike.
All right, perfect.
Appreciate it.
All right, well, thank you guys for hanging out. We had a pretty good little viewership going there for a minute, so
Wow.
we'll see you guys next time.